Hello and welcome to Five Writers, 5 Minutes, where we talk all things writing. Although today you will notice we are four writers because Tristan Banks couldn't join us. I'm Sarah Armstrong.
I'm Leanne Tanner.
I'm Deborah Abella.
And I'm Zanny Louise.
And today we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into my latest book, which is Magic Awry, which is the sequel to Big Magic. It's a little duology, a little fantasy duology. And I know that my friends here have quite a few questions about it. So I'm going to throw over to them to ask me the things they've been dying to know about Magic Awry.
Okay, Sarah, this is something I've been wondering for a while, and it's to do with your writing process. I was wondering if anything in this book took you by surprise while you were writing it, or did you know exactly what was going to happen beforehand? So I suppose it's kind of a plotting question, isn't it?
Yeah, good question. And maybe I'll just quickly say that it's about 11-year-old girl Tulsi who lives in a traveling circus with her mum and dad, and she's inherited some magic from her mum that's passed down the maternal line, and that all unfolds in book one. But in book two, of course, it's got to be a bigger problem than in book one. Magic itself is at risk, which is why it's called Magic Awry, because awry means off balance or out of kilter. So I kind of knew that setup, and that is pretty much all I knew. The way I write my first drafts is just sort of have a bit of a situation, like a setup, and I kind of know where I want it to end. And then I just write into it. Like I'm very much a fly by the seat of my pants type writer with a little bit of an idea. So quite a bit did take me by surprise, including some of the major twists in it. Now, I won't reveal those because I don't want to do a spoiler, but there is one major moment where something surprising happens and it's a fair way into the story. And I did not know it was coming. And it was this lovely thing. As I was writing away, and I just thought, oh, yes, this can happen now. And it's almost like part of me, my creativity had known all the while that we were leading up to this, because it'd been when I look back, all these little seeds planted, but it just took me, my rational mind, a little while to catch up with it. And I love those moments where it's like, oh, yes, I can do this. So definitely that took me by surprise. And I would say I have just really learned to trust my inner process. My creativity threw up a few other ideas, which I wrote down and then later rejected. So it's not that everything that I'm surprised by I'm going to use, but I just let those things bubble up because probably 50% of them I love and will use. Yeah.
I think that's also good to kind of remind ourselves about too, that yes, you can plot and you can plan, and I do, but you need to be really open to the fact that you're going to have a better idea at some point, probably, the better that you get to know your characters. So I love that about your beautiful books, Sarah. They're so amazing. And these books too, of course, because they're set in that world of magic and, that otherworldliness, of course, you had to build that world. And world building, of course, is so important. If we can't convince our readers that this different world exists, then they're not going to come with us. So how much work was involved in the world building for these two books?
Yeah, there was a reasonable amount of world building done, and I think I didn't realize how much there would be when I started writing it. I thought, oh, I'm going to write a book with magic in it. And then I realized, no, you've actually got to know all the rules of that world. And so I wrote a whole lot of rules. You've got to know what the characters can do and what they can't do. Because if the magic doesn't make sense, then the reader won't trust it. These books are set in the real world with a kind of side of magic. So everything is real, gravity exists and all those kinds of things that you and I expect in the real world. But these particular people happen to be able to do magical things and draw on the power of nature to do spells. So I really had to figure out what they could do and write those rules. And there would be sometimes I think, oh, and now they're going to do this. And I think, oh, no, because I've made it a rule. They can't do that. So sometimes I would actually trip myself up with the rules that I had made, but I'd made that rule for a reason. So I did a lot of that. Like the rules in this, for instance, are, magic can't be used for greedy purposes. You can only use magic with goodwill for others. You can't use magic to change the natural order. Like if a magpie has grabbed a mouse off the ground, you can't kind of stop it from catching that mouse and eating it, because that is the natural order. So I made all these rules, and so then I had to follow them. And I think I had to make sure the characters would accept these rules, because that's part of the world building, that the magical characters just like very matter of fact to them, in fact, that this magic exists. So it was a huge amount of fun figuring out what the magic could do and couldn't do, and also the origin of the magic, because it goes way back to England and Wales, where Tulsi, the main character's great grandmothers are from. And I wrote the spells in Welsh, because that's quite close to a language that would have been spoken, long ago in England and Wales. So all that was, just to have to say, enormous fun, that world building. I loved it.
Well, we loved it too.
Oh, thank you.
We did.
Zanny?
Well, Sarah, I love both these books, and I'm in awe of you writing a sequel. This is not something I've ever attempted to do, and I wouldn't know the first place to start. Tell me, how did you approach this thing of writing a sequel?
Yeah, well, I've never done it before either. With my adult books, I've only written what you call like a standalone book. I actually did very little planning for the sequel, which was a sort of possibly a bit of a mistake. I know of people, I've heard that, say, Jessica Townsend for the Nevermore series planned the plot, or J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter planned what would happen in a lot of the books way ahead. I didn't do that. I just sort of thought, oh, there's just going to be an even bigger problem that she has to deal with, something goes wrong with magic. Luckily, I was writing Magic Awry when we were finishing the edits for Big Magic, and I realized I was going to have to plant some stuff in Big Magic, some clues or some things that would then come to fruition or play out in Magic Awry. So I was lucky I could do that. But I have to say, I found writing a sequel so much easier than writing the first book, because I knew all the characters, I knew the setting, I knew the magic. I didn't have to do the world building again. I'd sorted all that. I knew exactly what that magic could and couldn't do by then. And I just hung out with these people I really like for longer time. So actually, I wrote it probably in about a quarter of the time that it took me to write Big Magic, much quicker.
I was feeling that as a reader, that it just felt so confident. It felt like that. Like, it felt, okay, we're here. Let's go and let's amp up this adventure. Let's, raise the stakes again. I felt I was definitely on that journey with you too.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think I'd sort of got the hang of writing fantasy a bit more by then, because all my other books for adults have been realism. And so, yeah, it was so much fun raising the stakes and amping it up and making the baddie even badder. And
Always fun.
She's such a baddie. Like, she's such a
baddie.
Great character.
Yeah.
Wow.
So good.
Congratulations. It's just
Thank you.
such a wonderful book.
Lovely book.
Absolutely beautiful. And I know plenty of kid readers who adore this book. So, definitely a great one to read aloud in the classroom, share with your friends. It's a great book.
Thank you. I was just looking through it before we recorded today, just looking for bits of dialogue and stuff for an earlier podcast. And I started reading, thinking, oh, I'm really enjoying this, because it's been so long since I read it. I should enjoy reading my own book, which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for those great questions. That was really fun to kind of revisit Magic Awry, because, of course, I'm thick and writing a completely different book at the minute. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on 5 Writers 5 Minutes, or 4 Writers 5 Minutes today. We have a podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.